Okay, we're starting now. Can everybody see the screen? This. All right. What I want to do, what do you want to do? But, I mean, I know what you want to do, but you can still say it. What would you guys like to do? Discuss the lesson sequence, wouldn't you? Do you have any questions? That's what I'm really asking. Do you have any specific questions?
No, I don't have any, but discussing the lesson plan will be good.
All right, we will do that. But we still have a few weeks before the assignment is due, so there are some things I want to do. First of all, you can see that in our unit we're kind of breaking with some traditions, aren't we? With some long-standing traditions in this unit. And I'm not saying what I'm saying is new, I just think that what I'm saying, Winch has been saying, and other people have been saying, and the curriculum is saying, but somehow it doesn't translate into practice. Because what happens, students read the textbooks, and the textbooks have these wonderful, glorious terms like communication, negotiation, critical thinking, all of this wonderfulness. And then you go to school, and school feels under pressure from someone or other, and then they'll tell you, you just got to get those consonants right with the children. You've got to get those other things right, and so on. And all of a sudden, what in textbooks and in the literature is seen as a wonderful opportunity for us to create smart people out of little people, we're turning them into spitters of the requirements of interpretations. Those people who actually interpreted those requirements of getting the vocabulary right, getting the grammar right. I mean, I don't get the grammar right, and I'm teaching you. I don't get the vocabulary right. It takes me sometimes a day to write a bloody paragraph, right? So the idea that you become a proficient user of language, using appropriately everything, is just a mystery. But what I'm saying is, what it does create, that pressure, what it does create is, as this person from Czechoslovakia wrote, I can't remember her Christian name, but she said, I became lazy because I knew that the teacher would give me the right answer. So what's the point, you know? So why I'm saying this, I would like us to actually rethink certain practices today, and we will just do a little bit more detailed work today. And that's what I suggest. Just a couple little things I want to suggest today to look at, so that we actually can start making our imagination get some momentum, as opposed to getting stuck in what we know, because this is an academic unit. This is not a prac unit. I am not teaching you what to do tomorrow in class. I am teaching you how to think about your class so that you are prepared for the changes that are happening at an enormous rate. What today is in your classrooms and the classes you will be teaching in 1 year, 2 years' time might be completely different. So I want you to actually have particular principles and particular understandings and sort of higher vision, so that you are prepared for the job, not for the school tomorrow. That's a bit different. Okay? Now, as I was reading our assignments, I'm absolutely convinced that all our students in our unit are from Mars. I'm absolutely convinced. Nobody's going to change my thinking in that. They were magnificent portfolios. I have never seen such beautiful e-portfolios in my entire life as I've been teaching these units. So, so that's one thing. All of you are from Mars, and don't even try to convince me otherwise, because I know. But there are some things that have been coming through those portfolios, and the first one, and it's only this point that I will actually target or address now, which is the concept of literacy. Some people think of literacy as a text. See the point too? Right, so I want us to actually flesh it out. So, but before I go to how people use the word literacy, I have seen, for example, in Lisa Emery's portfolio, she quite nicely, somehow naturally came out of her, or maybe she has these abstract ways of thinking. Either way, what popped out from her in her blog is the need to actually say, why the heck are we defining things? That's very important. Why the heck are we defining things? And I think as children in classrooms look at dictionaries, that's great. But I think us as intellectuals, the last resort I want you to do is to look for dictionary for a definition. In fact, it happened to me and my PhD student. I was in her house, and she was in front of me doing her research, doing whatever, and I was checking some of her stuff. And after a while, she annoyed me, and I went, what are you looking in those dictionaries for? And she goes, culture, I need to know what culture is. And I said, but baby, I've got a PhD in culture. So I'm just behind her. I've covered enough already to get a PhD for it. And the woman, my own PhD student, is looking for the meaning of the word dictionary, not in intellectual frameworks, but will give her principles for teaching, but in a dictionary. So I think the idea of why we create definitions needs to be addressed, and now you can actually read it in this little slide. Definitions give us principle for action. Otherwise, definitions are useless. Right? So the way you actually define things, if it doesn't give you principles for action, your definition means nothing. It's not useful. It has to be useful. It has to tell you what to do. Otherwise, what do you do with that thing? So that's the first point. The second point, literacy is not a text. Some of our students write literacy is a text. Literacy is not a text, it's an ability. But I will take you through my reading of this paragraph because I wanted to be clear what that ability involves. And it's very important. Why am I dragging this? Because when you create your lesson sequences and you get the beginning wrong, you get the whole thing, well, I don't want to use the word wrong, but you're just going to go on a path where I wouldn't want you to be. So in your design of lessons, I am less interested in how you deal with the detail and more interested in how you embed it. Because if you start it right and you can't get all the detail right, the detail will come in due course, and also kids will force you to get the detail right because you create a room for inquiry, a room to ask questions. You go home and you say, shh, I should have thought about it. I should have found something. The kids asked me questions and I didn't know. And that's great. It's a great lesson. But so the idea is to start right so that students can ask questions. If you start wrong, you basically gag them. You see? That's why I want you to start right. It's so important. So let's have a look at this. So that's why the beginning of the lesson sequence is so important. With what mind frame are you creating your design of 5 lessons? Where is it going to go? What is it going to teach? And in that point 3 here, which you might be able to see on your screens, is literacy. It concerns itself with an ability. So are you literate? Are you able to? And now some people were saying in their, almost 90% of portfolios were saying to get the meaning out of the text. But the text is created by a human being, not by God. So what happens then? Some human being who has difficulties making their text clear writes some difficult to follow sequences of words, and how you get the meaning out of it. Well, Anya, we don't have this problem because we're dealing with big authors who created these wonderful stories for children. Oh, yeah, but that's not all what literacy involves. So as I said here, it must involve, the last sentences, literacy as an ability to read and write actually must involve not reading and writing as much as ability to work with text. If you don't know how to use the word critical, then maybe the phrasing of it would be ability to work with text. That skews a lot of focus in literacy classes in primary school. Children don't work with text. Children are getting the meaning out of the text, but there's no such a thing, of course, as getting the meaning out of the text. Because we are not one. This is not a Nazi army that we're training. You know, must be thinking one way, marching one way, and saying things one way. So it's an ability to work with text, and that just by phrasing it this way, it creates confusion, because Anya, what does that mean? Whatever that means, it doesn't mean getting the meaning out of text. And once you actually write for yourself before you even do your lesson sequence, say, I want my children in my classroom to get involved in working with text. Jesus, that just skews everything. And I am happier for you to get that wrong than to train children to vocabulary and grammar structures and beat them to death with grammar and linguistics. Because the point is, we don't want them to be top linguists at the age of 6 or 7 or 8. We want them to work with text. We want that dialogic work that Ockerman is talking about. We don't want them to say meaning, noun, out, preposition, text, noun. Gets nowhere. A monkey can recognize it after a while, but can't write, I don't know, think of some story. The Lion and the Mouse. So we want children to work with text. And here's this communicative aspect of literacy, working with text. And what it does involve is purpose. Because, for example, the way you work with the text I put on the slide is not necessarily the way I worked with the text in order to create it on that slide. So for you it means, well, what does that mean to me? How am I going to work with that from the sequence I have in my head already? Right? So you're working with my text now, trying to sort of turn it around, twist it, see it, not just in 3D, but in 6D, to see how that applies to your vision of your class that you'll be creating. So the communicative aspect of literacy means that the only reason that children work with text is if they have a purpose to work with them. And the whole sequence of the 5 lessons has to be constructed in such a way that you draw students through your engagement activities into them wanting to create a project, to do something, that it gives them a purpose. So everything else they do will be feeding to that purpose. We're doing this project, and I'm going to find out how people do things, because I need to see how it relates to my project. So you see, they have a communicative reason, because they want to do this project. And that's very important. So all activities have to be centering on enabling children to do the project. So they work with different texts in order to do the project. Not in order to do the thing that we want them to do because we were trained to believe that if you know the difference between the verb and the noun, your life will be different. Yeah, it may be, not necessarily good. And at the age of 6 and 7, who cares? By the time they are 12, or by the time they are 16 or 15, they will know the verb and the noun. At the age of 6, 7, 5, they don't have to be linguists. If it helps sometimes to make a distinction, and say, you see the difference, this does this, this, yeah, that's great. But that is to help them to communicate. This is not to turn the task of teaching into a lesson in linguistics. So are we clear, a little bit about clearer? I mean, I'm repeating this thing every lesson, but that's how it is. And people go to church from the day they're born until they die, because every day they find something new in the same message. So it's pretty much more or less like this. Every time I talk about it, I hope that it actually positions in your mind the purpose of literacy classroom a little bit differently, and opens different aspects of the same thing, which is that the literacy is about creating opportunities for children to communicate. And that means that they will be looking for the best tools to do so, for the best effect. And that's the thing. That notion of communication is not present in the assignment, and that's why I'm spending 3 hours now, or the last 20 minutes, just talking about this. This was absent. And that's the only reason why we have children in literacy classes, not to read and write, but to work with tools to participate on a critical basis, or participate informed. People can live in our society without reading, but that removes them from a multitude of communication contexts, and consequently they are likely to act on a less informed basis and be disadvantaged, right? So we want them to actually communicate, and communicate on an informed basis. That's why literacy comes in. It brings another world into children's lives. Okay, can I move to the next slide now? Is everybody happy with me to move on, or do you have some questions?
Yeah, no, you can move on.
Move on, okay. So what do I have here? So that's it. So that's why I have this model. I know we've seen it. We memorize it. Every time you'll see these words, you'll think of Anya. But that's what I want. Children to engage in order to create and in order to share. So I would like these three aspects to be present. So the lesson sequence needs to be built around this. And if you run out of space to create sharing, or to create some sort of element, or to include particular element in your lessons, you can say, I would have done another 2 lessons and they would be about this and this, just don't have space for it. So that's fine. As long as I know that you want to have this model, they engage in order to create, and then they share. Because we always talk in order to share. So we've seen that. We've seen that. I just have to do something. There's the first thing I want to kill. I have never thought of those taxonomies the way until I just recently started to. Okay. You've seen those taxonomies before? There's just one table of sorts and there's another table. And I call them taxonomies or whatever. Can anyone tell me what's the word wall? I know it's a stupid question, but you never know what's going to come up. I've got students from Mars, so nothing stupid will come out. Something really good. Come on, what's the word wall? Eileen, you can type. What's the word wall?
Sorry, I'm having trouble doing it. Did you ask what's the word? Oh, you just typed it.
Yeah, what's the word wall? What does it look like?
Yeah, is it just vocabulary,
Okay.
just stuck up on a wall in a classroom?
How do they look like? How do they look like? It's just like where it's stuck up on the wall, right? Yeah, okay. And do children look at them? Like when they sort of have a sandwich, or when do they look at them? Come on, guys, you can type. The point is the children don't stand in front of them and they don't memorize them. Another thing is, I have nothing against word walls, but I just would suggest to you that they could be an artifact of the past. The more they look at those words, the more they are present around them. That's true. And I have no problem with it. But can we actually now what I'm trying to say is this is an intellectual course. This is an academic course. This is to teach you skills for the job, not the skills for the classroom tomorrow where you have the prep. And that's important. Or where you are already employed. So this is the course that is going to teach you for the next 10 years or 20 years of your life. Now, can we sort of sexy it up to make these word walls come alive? Be happy walls, where kids click and things happen, and they can click till the cows come home and more things happen, and they actually love their word walls, as opposed to having these mystery words hanging there and like 10 Commandments. Sorry, I don't mind to insult anyone. I myself, I come from a Christian family, but do you know what I'm saying? They just hang there, and you must remember that cat is C-H-A. Can we sort of think of them in a more interesting way? Imagine you can have in the classroom anything you want. You can have 3 smart boards, not just one. And I know school principals, because I work in Darwin with school principals, and they'll buy you two smart boards. You want 2 smart boards, they'll put 2 smart boards. What else do you want? I mean, I know a principal from a school who said to me, Anya, I've got $60,000 to spend on top of what I already have. I have no idea what to buy. So a lot of her time she spent last year to actually research what's there to buy. You know, she went shopping for technology. So what I'm saying is, why don't we just think of Smartboard as being alive? Has things we put in there ourselves and with children. Children can come to a Smartboard and see words, like rhymes or like whatever word. Next to it could be a picture, I don't mind. And they click on it, and things happen. And they click on something else, and things happen. And they click on something else. They are, let's think about them as interactive databases of English language use. How about that? I know you can say to me, well, not in my school. Sure, because we still have these walls. Have the walls. I have no problem against the walls. They're there. But interactive databases of English language use allow for quick compare and contrast and explorations that actually draw children in, as opposed to hang there in a frightening way, because I still can't remember whether cat is with a K or with a C. Because you just never know whether in English. It could be anything. The English couldn't get it right, and now they want me at 6 years of age to get it right. You know, English is a very young language. So children can actually, if they knew how to access their power and tell you, those who invented English didn't know how to get it right. Right? So can you see a difference between an interactive database of English? I've covered these 2 tables. I'll talk about them a little bit more. But the reason why I want to hit it is because I think that a lot of times I get from you in those portfolios is stuff that is not new. And I'm thinking, we've got all this technology and we see it in classrooms and we don't use it. We just don't know how to use it. At best I have seen people use technology was at the end of the class or at the beginning of the class, people did a game. Big deal. Big deal. Okay, let's think critically now. Can you see that the table 1, the one above, is sort of similar to the table underneath, to the database underneath, but they are different. One has rhymes on the left, and the other one has rhymes on the top. because as you create information with it, I mean, you can actually have one database and that's fine. But you could have a database of what people do and why or how people do it. I would suggest that maybe the taxonomy on the bottom would be about how people do it, right? So when, when. And then if children click on nursery rhyme, they will get the nursery rhyme, and then medium is a print. So they can see that the same title can be as a print, can be as a game, can be as a poster, can be as, what else? Audio recording, video recording. Same title, same story. And lots of rhymes. And when children click on when and hen, it can take them straight away to the place where when and hen is. So it will be highlighted. Do you think you can do it today? I can tell you can do it with a stupid PowerPoint. You can. It's going to be a big PowerPoint with all the slides to make it interactive and actually, but so what? So you can make a little taxonomy for one thing, another taxonomy for another thing. So every time people click, they open different files. But it's very doable. I'll show you some little things today. But what do you think? When you work with children through the text, and you actually analyze the text about what people do, and people say, what all these things are, they all rhymes. So we just click here on rhymes and we can check. And we can find other texts with rhymes, and we can say, oh, the little thing that we were doing exercises on in lesson 1 or during the warm-up is no different than the other things, and they all rhymes. Okay, well, there are rhymes here, look at that. And so on, and we can get on with it. But what I'm saying is, and you can actually, as you are working with children, you can add information into it so the children learn how to add information. If you don't know how to physically do it, I will show it to you. I'll produce a little recording for everyone how to do it. But other than that, I'm just talking imaginative stuff, so that when you see another in your office, I mean in your schools, there will be IT people, and you can say, look, I've got this crazy teacher. She's hot about computers. She gave us this idea. She says we can do it with the PowerPoint. I know she's nuts, but you're not. Can you tell me how we could do that? When you have a vision, and when you have an IT person employed at the school, you know what questions to ask. Otherwise, the only thing the IT person does is turns on your camera and makes sure that your computer is connected to the internet. And yet you can do together. And one teacher will do 1-2 lessons, another teacher will do 1-2 lessons and connect it to this taxonomy, another teacher will create 1-2 lessons connected into this taxonomy. What do you think after 6 months, how much stuff will be on this little database? Enough. It will be enough. But life goes on, and you can put in more information into these taxonomies as you work with children and also in preparation for classes. And they grow. And children can come to the smartboard and click on things and see what happens. And you've got an interactive world, what's it called? Word wall. An interactive word wall. How's that for a difference? What do you think as a concept? This video is funny. Something that I think so. I really do. I really think so. And you have examples. It could be fun. It could be fun. And you have examples at the fingertips, right? So that's something to keep in mind. You know how people were saying, you know, when I was little, and people were saying you know, imagine in science fiction people will have phones with, and they will be seeing each other like through a video, you know. They can call a person, they can see her face or his face. Well, what do we call it? Face, what do we call it on the iPhone? I forgot, so this face function. It does. Guided with you in classroom, and not guided when they can actually come up. And you can say to your principal, in my class I have 3 big groups, I work with children, each of them 6 children, I want 3 smartboards in my class. And if you make a case, you have your particular room for literacy teaching, and you have your 3 smart boards. They're expensive, but they have the money. I mean, they have smart boards even in rooms where they have meetings. What's the point? I can't understand what's the point of having a smart board in a room where you have a meeting. Right? So people have smart boards. I have experience. I went to a particular school because, you know, our students go to different schools as pre-service teachers, and they have to have some referral person at Charles Darwin University. And I went to school where, according to the mentor, our pre-service teacher didn't know how to do behavior management. The mentor was full of herself, and she thought she knew how to do behavior management. Behind them was a $5,000 smart board, not once turned on. The kids, to me, I mean, if you ask me, the kids were just 20 little angels of the age of 7. I mean, the kids were fine. It's just that the 2 women, or at least one of them, was sort of, I don't know, uncomfortable with this and that. But the smart board was never turned on. Nothing. They were still running with pieces of paper. We've got children on iPhone plans, and we're giving them in classroom continuously pieces, you know. I'm not saying that I'm against the paper. But what I am saying, not do it 24 hours a day, every day. Paper and paper and paper and scissors and glue, paper, scissors, glue. And at home they do miracles. So that's the sort of thing to think about. Another thing I will do here now, I'll produce a miracle. I'll show you something. You probably should have seen it. Okay, how many of you have seen the game Sam and His Games? Have you seen that game I created? Did I upload it on the unit modules? I'm sure I did, but sometimes when I upload the LearnLine disloads because they will think that the pictures I uploaded on the PowerPoint are not footnoted or whatever it's the word, and they remove them. So have you seen Sam and His Games? Or have you seen a song that I have about, I've been around the world a couple times and more, or more? Okay, anyone has seen the games I have created using PowerPoint? Yes, no? Guys, can you hear me? Okay. Well, let's have a look at this one. I don't know what you can see. Now, I can't see you because all I can do is see my screen of my computer. Can anyone use the mic and tell me whether you can see the screen? You can't type it because I won't see it. Can you say it using mic whether you can see the new screen?
Yeah, we can see the screen. It's just loading. It's there now.
And okay, stay tuned and just answer this one too. If I press on play, will you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay, I have played that song to students from Indonesia who spoke 5 words in English. I had 400 people in the room, and I'm not saying that they were illiterate. Obviously, they were literate. But once we got to this moment, I had 400 Indonesian people screaming their hearts out singing this song, you know?
With lots of plum trees, a sheep or two, a kangaroo, a clothesline at the back, veranda at the front, and an old rocking chair.
All right. Has anyone seen this PowerPoint before?
I saw this on one of the units that you sent out.
Okay. So if we click here, can you hear it?
Yeah.
I want you to actually at home to play it, because you can actually play with children, but you can actually have this also without pictures, and children can guess what word is said. And you will see that they can't tell. I mean, you see a picture and you know the song, but actually when you just play the sound with no music before and no indications of anything, just the sound, you can actually see how hard it is to actually guess. And what you could do at some stage with children, to actually try to guess the letters or what the word is, or maybe letters or something, and then go backwards until you get to the song. So you can then put the pictures in, and then they can confirm, and then you get the whole song. And they'll say, oh, we always knew that. So you can go forward, like play the song and then actually play the game as it is designed, or you can go backwards, remove all the support and just have these I think, what was the word one? This one is hard. Nobody gets this one. If I play clothesline, actually without any pictures or nobody knowing that this is about the song, nobody can get what this man is saying. Okay? Actually, my husband, who speaks English. So you can see, you can give me a... And if children want to have a help, here it is. Now, how do you think I designed this home here?
Gum trees.
And if we don't know what it is, plum trees, then you... Any idea how I did that?
Is that just using photos and clip art?
Okay, so I did the clip art, yes. Then I put the voice here, right? This is great. Nobody can hear. I mean, you can't hear it because you don't have. This is not loud enough. But other than that, if you actually did play to other people with and them not knowing what the song was about, and just play this or two, nobody would hear it. It's really hard. It's really hard. All right. So, but how did I get the sound? Is nice because I embedded the sound. But how can I get this when people click on help? This question mark is help, and the sheep comes up. Do you know how I did that?
No.
Can you realize that every time I click on a help, you see a different slide? You don't believe me? Look at that. So every time, so we started with just one question mark, then the next slide is this, then the next slide is this, then the next slide is that. See? So what you do, you go to question mark, you right click, you say edit hyperlink, and you say connect it with this particular slide. So every time a person clicks on the question mark, you just duplicate all the time those things that you have created before, and it takes you to the next slide. But because you duplicated them, a person thinks that they are always on the same page. It's called cheating. It's called cheating children. That's how games are constructed. So anyone looking at this thinks that they still see the same screen, but in fact, it's all the time a different slide.
Rocking chair.
And if children don't remember what the song was about, you get someone who can sing to record it. You could do it yourself. I can't do it. I can't sing for the world of it. Someone even paid me money, I couldn't. And then you can do stupid things. Draw pictures in the right places. Give me a... Okay, I have to actually run it for it to work. Do you think the children will draw it on the whiteboard? Or on their little iPads? iPads are not good for it. They will turn the PowerPoint into a PDF. So it's much better to run it on a smartboard or computers or tablets. So there, and then they got these things here. Okay. What I wanted to show you too is little tricks you can do with computers. You click home and nothing happens, because what should happen, I took the wrong, okay, so this is good because this is slide 16, so I added hyperlink. I wanted to go to slide 17, so I click slide 17, blah, and then, so here, homework, you see word building, beautiful. Now when you click on home, it should take you now to this page. Do you know where I got it from? Internet. I will send you in the next in the PowerPoint for this Collaborate 5, lesson 5, session 5. I will send you sites of websites, you know, which are really, they basically American websites, really stupid, really simple, but they allow you to find preceding words and words after the center of the word. And you can, as a teacher, do a heap of things here. You can actually record yourself as home and someone else bodies, and you always record home and someone else records some other term. You can actually play with color here. You can click and get to sentences with pictures. So it's interactive. Now I think I know how to do that. If I click on Homeland, see, it takes us to this website. It's called morewords.com. It's actually created for crosswords. The site. So you just click on something. You just words starting with homeland, words containing homeland, words ending with homeland. And you've got these different things, other words. So you can use these beautiful imagination boosters, O-M-E-E-L-L-A, for doing little games with children, little plays with words, little plays with aspects of word building. So where were we? Okay, I think that would be it for, I think, sharing this stuff, because whatever I have there is not relevant. So now I just want to keep it short today, and I wanted to talk about the lesson 4, because it's quite controversial for for most of our students. And I'm not saying it has to be lesson 4, but when you do all these exploratory things, like word building, like taxonomies, like compare and contrast, and children learn that rhyming is in songs, in poems, and rhyming is fun, rhyming is about emotion, and it's a different type of emotion than a narrative, because rhyme you can sing out, you can dance it out. It's very difficult to dance to the narrative or to a poster. So once you've done all of these things, And when children, maybe through taxonomy, by using the taxonomy of sorts that we have created for them, I'm just looking for these wonderful taxonomies that I'm so obsessed about lately, they can click on something and they will select, once they decide in their lessons on a particular project they want to do, they may actually pick the book, a group, or the whole class, or maybe you together as a class decide to do one book together, and then they can actually work with these resources to which they have access through your taxonomy. Now, you might actually, through the taxonomy, pick a book and I actually drew a wrong picture here. Because once you pick a book now, when they actually work with the text for their project, because by now they know exactly what they want to do. They want to create a song for their performance in school, for example. They know exactly they want to do, or they want to do a little bit of the theater performance all with rhymes, right? So each group creates their own aspect of the theater performance. Now, what I don't want you to do, no. Ideally, if I came to your classroom and wanted to assess how you teach, I wouldn't like this situation that much. What I would prefer in an ideal world, what I would prefer is something more boring. Children pick up a text and then of course I don't have a slide, so I can't show it to you. And then you don't read the text to them. Eileen, what do you mean by no? I just noticed no, but I don't know what it was all about because I just didn't. So instead of doing what typically every student of mine writes in assignments, instead of actually you taking the book and reading to children, maybe you could create a facility for them whereby they still continue exploration and you never read, or hardly. So maybe the book could be like that song I have just put in the PowerPoint, where they can click on things and they get things out of the text. So for example, they can click on the line, the whole line. You can create an icon, but when they click on the whole line is, they hear the sound reading the whole line, word after word. So, but when they click on particular words get clicked. And when they click on things underneath, you might be showing to them different aspects of those words. And if you click on something else, you might actually show them some different things, relational things, that if you turn things around, something else would happen. If you turn things around, something else would happen. It's very exploratory, very interactive. The mind goes nuts. What does not happen is that you don't transmit to children yourself the story. I cannot see how in early literacy there needs to be the urgency for every literacy class to start with children knowing the story that they read. They don't have, they can discover it through their clicking and pressing on things and putting things together. They can actually start making sense out of the fragments they click on, rather than you always providing things because you can. I don't want to sound pejorative, by all means, no, but maybe because I come from Europe, we have maybe different way of putting things. But what I wanted to say is, I very often as a teacher, I have in my mind the following thought, which may not come across very well in English, I don't know. I say to myself, as a teacher, I am not babysitter, right? If I pay someone to look after my children, I want them to take my children through a story reading, to make them comfortable, to make them feel in awe, but not all children like it. Some children will like the story reading, some children will just be bored with the story you choose for them or whatever, so it's not the same for every child in any event. But I always say to myself as a help, I'm not a nanny. I'm not looking after the children. I actually am responsible for their expansion. I am responsible for their expansion. Whatever I do in class has that facilitating their expansion. Has me reading the story to facilitate their expansion. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. And I think that there will be other teachers who will be reading them the stories. So maybe sometimes there's time for us to think of how we could use the text from YouTube, download the author's readings, or record ourselves. And children actually actively make the text, the voice, come out from the PowerPoint, as opposed to they just sit there and we read to them. There is no involvement on their part. There's no active drawing of the audio out of the text. If you see what I'm saying is. And you might actually make the PowerPoint so interactive, that game of them just trying to read the text, so interactive, that they will love it. They will never even see you in class because they will be so engaged in trying to actually understand the story and play the games that the story makes possible for them. So to summarize, what I wanted to say is that the idea that we need to take the book, read to them, and then make them actually understand the meaning of the text is a little bit old. Because we don't actually make them understand the meaning of the text, we train them to understand the text, we understand it. Being very subversive, of course, I do horrible things sometimes. And one of the horrible things I've done, and I've deleted them from Facebook after I've done it, but I still have done it, on this Institute of Literacy, whatever it is for Australia, they have posted this thing that these are the comprehension questions for a particular text. So I asked them to put up also the comprehension questions for understanding Chopin, or Beethoven, or, I don't know, I mentioned some other. I mean, the point is, what comprehension questions will we ask children when it comes to music? Did you hear the high D? How many times did you hear the H chord or something? I mean, I have no idea about the music, so you can hear it. Right? I mean, me and music are two. We want children to experience music. We want children to experience through emotions, through experiences, through relating to other situations, and the same with the text. So rather than train them to our way, why not actually open it up to things that none of us can predict? So we create taxonomies. We fill these taxonomies with children. When you do the little chicken story, you put the chicken story, you add it there. You put the when and hen right there so they see how it's done. But if you can't do it there, at least you have it there. And when children click, things come up, and then they choose the story they might want to do for explore for their project. And then the first thing I would suggest, stop yourself from actually taking over and reading the story for them. Just like in a sandcastle, we don't build the castle for them. We might, when they tour, right, we might show them or and they see what other people do. So they get a pretty good idea by then when you have them that the story is there to be read and the buttons are there to be clicked. They get a pretty good idea. But they can work out how to actually go about reading this text for themselves without you always working too hard, without them moving, without them touching, without them, and with them being silently sitting on the mat. You know, I don't know about behavioral management. It seems to me if 3 groups work on 3 different texts and they can't hear the text because the other group is too loud, they can actually tell each other to be quiet. And in that sense, they can actually help one another, so that they develop a contract of collaboration. And I'm not saying that I'm not imagining these things. I'm talking to you actually about my PhD student did that thing in a school, primary school. She worked with little children. Some of them were 5, some of them were 12. They were in a group together, and that's what they did. The little children were pulling other children, reminding them, look, These were the rules. And even they reminded the teacher, these were the rules, remember? Because they wanted to do a particular project and they needed conditions for it. So there are a couple of things that I try to cover today. So the main thing I wanted you to actually get a sense from me is that I want to make you start thinking of this unit not as a frightening experience and not as a place where you cannot experiment. If you ever are allowed to experiment, it's in this unit. And I want you to start experimenting because that's the only way we can go forward in literacy, and it's the only way we can go forward in our profession. If we continuously do what our mentors are doing, what their mentors were doing, and continuously do with word walls and us sitting there, children on the mat, and us reading the story, we do what sociologists criticize over and over again, that we continue with the same. My mother did it, my grandmother did it. I love having stories read to me. But that's all right. But we don't have to do it in classroom. We might do it maybe sometimes. But the way I read our portfolios and the way I already, and the way how I have seen it, it's done all the time. And what I'm suggesting is maybe we could think differently. There's technology out there, there's money for technology. Universities, schools have money for technology, and I'm sure that you will come up with examples, or one can come up with examples where they don't have money. But they will have money. Because wherever I go, they have technology, but they just don't use it. And we can push it, we can squeeze out of those smart boards more than we've been doing. That's just my little example. So the point is, students do projects, students have to actually be active, and they have to organize and reorganize information in their heads. How they do that depends on the way we design materials for them, and we design materials for them from the word go. From the word go, which means from the moment there comes the time when we actually want to work with the text, the idea that we're going to have them all sitting around us, and that's like little nanny reading the book to them, it's also part of that design. So what I'm saying is, maybe do it sometimes, but why do it most of the time? Now, another thing I wanted to say is that once we explored in Lesson 1 and in Lesson 2 and in Lesson 3 the beginnings of what, why, and how, and when we now are working with the text, say on a smart board, say 3 different groups work on different texts, or all classroom works on the same text, I don't care really, they work with it to get out of it enough for their own project. Imagine how much they can actually put together on the basis of the experiences they collected in Lesson 1, 2, and 3. They can ask questions. There is no rhyme here. There is this and this is missing. Or how do you know that this is, our children will say that we want to produce a story for children. Okay, what are the markers of little poems for children? I mean, that needs to be asked, and that needs to be actually shown by you through your resources and through your teaching. Resources, I mean little games and little PowerPoints like I created the one with the song. So you can see what I'm saying is, it's very easy to go, well, this is how you do it once upon the time, but if children actually check that there are different ways of starting the story, they can create their own ways of starting the story. So we don't actually now reduce the project to the way how it's been done, but through exploration they feel liberated, that they have choices, they become creative. So that's why those 3 lessons, the first 3 lessons, I have actually allocated to exploration and engagement and exploration, because I want children to actually first develop tools for analysis. And now when it comes to the time when we actually explore text in more detail, be it the same even text about the hen, But now when we've seen other texts and we know how things relate to each other and why, communicatively speaking, right? What are the markers of children poems? Well, how do we know? How do we all know that the hen story is for children, not for adults? How do we know? I can't even think myself how I would know. So maybe the beat of it. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Right? Very simple, sweet, nice. We can dance it, we can jump it, all of that. Adults don't jump. Right? Well, we can actually have one adult poem too. And they will click out of it very quickly because they'll be bored. There's nothing to dance, nothing like that. It's going to be nostalgic and boring, right? Feel the difference. So the way we give children the tools for analysis, and then we put them in a situation of analysis, now they have tools. Now they can talk to each other and discuss and look for organization and for patterns and click to reassure and so on. But the entire text is online, and they can just click and turn and twist it and whatever and explore further. As opposed to, now it's time for me to sit with you and do what always has been done. I'll read the story and you will listen, because that makes you obedient little children, and that's what it's all about. It's all about the leader, and little voters listen to the leader. Sorry for that, but that's pretty much the pattern underneath. I mean, what critical pedagogy calls it, it's a congregation story. You've got a priest, and you've got all these people who might not understand it, but they behave the way as required, as expected, right? That's the point about the Mass, in church, the congregation, that it's not about understanding, it's about behaving. And when someone doesn't behave, we have a moral code and we say they misbehave. And the children who behave don't understand, we love, because they behave. And so we train them. So there, I think that is enough for sophistication for today. It's a horrible environment, but it's not fast enough. I think the internet is not fast enough for us we just can't have this face-to-face talk, not well enough, I think. So I will just summarize, and then I'll leave you floor for talking, just to make sure that for the recording, I'm just happy with this sort of way of making sure that the message comes across. So what I'm saying, be innovative, imaginative. Every time you know how to do a thing, think to yourself, why am I doing that? What will Anya look for? Will Anya look for me training children to grammar and she'll be happy? Or she's going to look for innovation? I can assure you, I'm going to look for innovation. I'm going to look for communication and for innovation. Every time you say to me, I'm going to get the children on the mat, and I'm going to sit there, and I'm going to read it to them, I'll ask myself the question, why are you reading? And you will tell me, because I can. And I will say, well, it is not about you. It is about them being able to read, not you. We already know you can. So ask yourself, why am I doing? What tools can I invent? What about this taxonomy? How can I lie to Anya in the lesson design that I have a taxonomy? Keep lying. Tell me you have it. Tell me what is in it. Lie through your teeth. But be imaginative. Kids click here, what happens? When they click here, what happens? How will they, if they select a particular story because it's a story they want to hear, and it's a story which is useful for their project to see how people do things, are you going to read it to them? Right, so they make a decision through compare and contrast using resources which are linked to the taxonomy. They know all about taxonomy because when you're in class, you actually add ideas that they create into the taxonomy so that they can relate to the taxonomy, to the database, interactive database, because they know that bit there we put in, and they'll show someone else. And, when you click here and when you go there, we did that thing. We love our word wall. We did it. It's our stuff there. Our projects are there too. Right? That's the sort of imaginary world. All of this could be on the internet, connected to the internet, but at this very moment, what I'm asking you is imagine it and draw it in a sense of metaphor, draw it to me. And then when you teach and when you see your IT people in your schools, you ask them, how do we do that? We don't have to do it really well. Can we do it in a silly way, in a stupid way? I have a husband who is a professor in technology. He's been a professor in technology forever. Khan Academy is after him now. He does things like I would never do, because I don't know how. But I use Google Sites, just like you guys. I use PowerPoint. I'm really primitive. I'm pedestrian, but it works, because I know where I'm going, so I can use primitive things to do wonderful things. And all these wonderful tools that IT people know how to use, I'll leave it to them. They can do it. I can't do it. So what I'm saying is, what matters is imagination, not the skill. The skill, you've got an IT guy in your school who can do it for you. But you've got to have a vision. So at each moment when you design your class, think to yourself, why am I working so hard? I have shown it to you on the discussion board. There was, I found on the Australian curriculum under, I think, resilience, because I'm all into resilience nowadays. I just finished on the yesterday, or actually today I was still working on it, application for ethics. But I found this lesson design, and this person who wrote that lesson was, I will do this, and 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 I just wanted to know what the kids will do. Working too hard. Every time I will do this, and now organize it, and now make them into groups, and now I will blah, 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 and now think of the ways how you can actually put the decision into children's hands. What will happen in classrooms nowadays and in your schools, that the idea of building well-being and resilience skills in children is going to come to your schools on a daily basis. The schools I'm interested in, where I'll be running my projects independently of my project, totally independently of my project, they're actually going to teach every morning children resilience skills. Every morning they'll have half an hour for resilience skills. So we teach them resilience skills and then we put them on the mat, as if they couldn't work out for themselves what they want to do. We tell them, I will do this for them, and then so every time you got this I in your lesson design, stop. Think of it differently, because we need to have kids empowered, but by empowered means we trust them that they can actually organize themselves towards projects. But in order to do that, we need to inspire them. We need to give them this engagement phase, which is really engaging, which is drawing them in, and tools that they can see they can draw on further so that they feel supported in doing crazy things. If they don't feel support, they really want you to read to them and tell them what to remember, because it's hard otherwise. Without support, they can't do much. Okay, I'm pretty much finished here for today, because these are the points I wanted. I just wanted to start stimulating your imagination a little bit, and now so that you can see the difference between coming to the classroom and reading to children on the mat, and a pedagogy where children get drawn in, supported with tools to explore, to define, to get excited about something, to define their projects, to explore what's in them, to be able to read things on their own without you always being the one through whom this is manifested. And then create and have fun and ask questions of one another. And if they're not expansive enough, they have this they have resources you created that they can actually click on and see whether they still see things the same way they saw before. I'll just leave it here because that is good enough. Okay, would you have any questions? Now, first of all, did you actually understand a little bit? sometimes I have this problem that on the internet my accent is just not really coming through it really well. But especially using LearnLine, when I record my podcast. Okay, no questions? Okay. Well, it's only 10 or so past 6, so... Okay, Lini, that's great. So you see, Lini, also, we were talking about, with Lini, I had a private discussion also about this concept that people always write about, which is getting the meaning out of the text. Now here, with children, when they are actually inspired and to do a project, because they have been engaged and supported to actually frame something that they would love to do, they can do, because they can see they can do, because you have shown them different compare and contrast exercises about what people do, why, and how, so they can actually now say, well, me too, me too, me too. And now, when they look at someone's poem, they not draw the meaning out of it. They go, that's what's in it I could use for me. So they explore the poem, what's in it that I can use for me, what's in it I can use for me. And in that way they get many meanings out of the poem than just the meaning of the poem. Because there's some, and then there's a point I never make, well, I sometimes make in my classes, but I didn't make it in this. So, and then that meaning is richer. And then they appreciate those rhymes beyond the struggle that they had. The teacher made them understand that this was about the cat and the mouse. And that was really nice and it was very good, and I can say it. Now they understood it in more ways, because they had to engage in it in different ways, because they had to explore different organizations, including the consonants, including the syllables, including the intonation, everything, all the grammar, but in a purposeful way for the meaning or for the relevance to their own project. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? What's in it for me? Typical human principle, or principle of human action. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? But it gives children a motivation for exploring these texts, and this makes it meaningful. Meaningful meaning seeing many things in those little poems than they would otherwise. I told you guys, Lini, you are from Mars too. I couldn't believe it when I read those e-portfolios. I couldn't believe how the language, the readings, the attempt to be open to children, to change, I just couldn't believe it. They were just amazing. I just really enjoyed them. Thank you for that. All right, so it's 1:15 almost. So should we close for now? It was a bit big today. But should we close for now, or anyone wants to say something? Okay. Cool. All right, thank you very much, and I'll close the thing now. Thank you.